Hey guys, Harry here from the Art Gear Guide. Thanks very much for joining me today. Well, as you can see here, I've got the review of the 520 color pencils that come with from Brutfuner or Brutfuner, whatever you want to call them. They come in two separate sets. Okay, so you've got this set here of 260 pencils and this set here of 260 pencils. So, but for the purpose of this review, we'll call this set A, the dark set. We'll call that, or the dark artwork on the box, we'll call that set A, and the light one we'll call set B. Now, they're not lettered like that, or it's just for the purpose of this. Like, at least I can't see any distinguishing feature, like, you know, calling them set A or set 1 or 2 or anything like that. They just are the way they are. Obviously, the artwork is different slightly, very slightly on both of them. One is slightly darker than the other. One is more colourful than the other. So that is something that you would need to make sure that if you buy, say like you bought set A, you used the pencils and then you thought to yourself, right, I'm going to go and buy that next set. If you've thrown out the box and put your pencils in a like jars or something like that, you would need to make sure that you remembered that you bought the dark set, because like I say, there's no distinguishing difference. So they're just like this box here just says on the front of it 260 Brutfuner oily colored pencils, and this one says exactly the same. So see, that's a mistake that I would make, so I just wanted to highlight that to you. But anyway, this has taken me ages, absolutely ages of painstaking, and I do mean painstaking, because as I go through this review, you will see how much work I've got that has gone into trying to make this review easy for you guys to take a look at. But what I will say is, you are going to have to also, I know when I do my reviews, I do the video review and the written review, and you know, the two of them, you can watch one without the other, it doesn't really matter, or you can read one without watching the video and still get a good idea of what's going on with the pencils. I would say for this review, it would be a really good idea to go across and watch or look at the written review, because the visuals over there will be slightly different and you'll understand what I mean as I'm going through. So there's two sets, okay? So we've established that. Two sets, each set comprising of 260 colours. In each box there are 10 trays of pencils. Now, originally, when I first seen this, when I first seen that there were, 520 pencils and then that they were broke down into two boxes, I thought to myself, are they forcing you to go out and buy both sets? In other words, is, say, like set A going to have all the yellows, the reds, the oranges and pinks? And then is set B going to have kind of like all your blues, browns, greys, and that type of thing? But that's not the way they are laid out. You can get one of these sets and you're good to go. You do not need to get the other one, although the pencils are numbered from 1 to 520, and if you wanted to get that entire collection, you're obviously going to need to get two sets. So let me explain. So in a lot of this review is going to be images coming up on your screen, so I apologize for that rather than me showing you, because there's just so much. It doesn't all fit onto my desk, so a lot of it is photographs that I've had to take so that I can get it on the screen. Anyway, with set A, like I say, you get 10 trays. So coming up on your screen, you'll see the trays that come in set A. So you can see here we've got all the nice yellows, oranges and reds. And then next we have kind of like your pinks going into your purples. Third layer is a beautiful selection of greens. I mean, like, listen, the colours all the way throughout all of these sets are amazing. And we'll get into some of the colours later on. The fourth tray is a beautiful selection of blues, going from light to dark blue. Fifth layer is kind of like, you can see here, like violets, dark purples, indigos, that type of thing. Sixth layer, yellow ochres, ochre type colors, tans, browns. Seventh layer, a few like kind of skin tones in there, like grey violets, dark blues again, coming in, a couple of dark greens in there as well. The eighth layer is a lot of greys, some blacks, and different variations of blacks. The ninth tray, again, a really nice selection of greens and blues here, some really nice dark greens. And then the 10th layer, again, you've got more reddy, orangey browns here, more earthy type tone browns. Okay, so that's the original colors that come in the set A, for argument's sake. Then we have set B. Now set B is the lighter box that I was showing you there. You can see here 260 oily colored pencils. And again, the first layer here, you can see slightly darker yellows, slightly darker reds, more pinks and purples. Again, blues. The trays are very, very similar all the way through the sets, okay? If you were to just visually look at the pencils, they look almost identical. So the fifth layer here, again, violets, dark blues, that type of thing. Sixth layer, a little bit more skin tone here. But seventh layer, again, you've got these kind of aqua greens, ochre greens, really nice selection of greens. The eighth layer here, again, we're coming into more reddy browns and a few really dark violets. Ninth layer is another selection of greys. Now the greys in the entirety of these 520 pencils are beautiful. And then the final layer here is kind of like ochres, darker ochres is in the other set, and really dark browns. So a couple of really dark greens are at the very end. But all in all, you can see there that you could go and get one of these sets and you are absolutely fine. You do not have to buy both of these sets. But if you are slightly obsessive like me, and it would drive you nuts not having both sets, because at the end of the day they are a collection. The pencils are numbered 1 to 520, like I say. Now, so I laid all these pencils out on my floor just to show you what they look like. So all the colors that are, you can see this layout here that I have for you, and this is all the colors here that come in set A. So you can see them all in a oneer as opposed to the layers that I've just shown you there. You can see here the way they are. And then next up is set B. Again, and this is where going over to the website will come into, because I'm just showing you these images as I go on the screen. But if you go over to the website, you'll be able to see these images side by side, and you'll be able to see how similar they are if you just look at them side by side. However, so I wanted to take the pencils all out of the boxes and put them in numerical order from 1 to 520 all the way through. Now, before I show you all of that, let's take a look at the actual pencils themselves. So, and then you'll understand why it was such a difficult task for me to do. So, first of all, the pencils themselves are So I'll give you the dimensions first of all. So the core on these is 3.5 millimeters, which is quite thick. It's kind of average actually, but it's quite a thick pencil. The barrel is 7.8 millimeter, and the pencils are uncapped on the end. So the core of the pencils is exposed on the end. The pencils are round barreled, and the color of the barrel indicates the core pigment color as well. So visually you can select them very easily. Now along the barrel we have the pigment name, so that's a bonus. Some of the names on these, I mean, don't forget guys, there's 520 colors here, okay? I dare anybody to, without looking at a set, name 520 colors. You'd be pushing it. But they have come up with the different names here for the colors, which are on the pencils. Right beside the pigment name, there is a number. And that number is, like I was saying to you, the pencils being numbered 1 to 520. But it's like the number is stamped into the wood. So it's not very visible. So if you can imagine, I was on my hands and knees for a full day on my living room floor trying to pick out all these pencils from 1 to 520. It was a nightmare, and taking them out of the trays and putting them back into the trays and all the rest. We're trying to get them into like the color code that they're supposed to be in. It was just because the number here is just so difficult to see. At the very end of the pencil as well, there is another kind of like number code system here. So it'll have like a number like Y4 or Y8, I'm guessing it's for yellow, but then there's some other letters in the pencils that don't make sense. They don't connect to any number, so it could be anything. It could be representing anything. And then there's a / and then it says 520. So obviously they're referring to out of 520 pencils, and it just says colors at the end there as well. I'm not 100% sure what the system is that's supposed to be, and to be quite honest with you guys, I couldn't, after everything I've done here with these pencils, I'm not even going to try and look into that. On the opposite side of the barrel, it just has the pencil name on here, Brutfuner, and that is really about it. So the pencils themselves, on the boxes here, just let me pull this over. So on the boxes here, they say that they're oil colored pencils. Now that seems to be the running theme here with pencils from the Far East, Middle East, that neck of the woods, Japan, China, countries like that. A lot of the pencils seem to be oil based. And when I was doing all my testing and stuff, like all the different tests that I do with pencils, I could definitely tell that there is a lot of oil in the pencils. Not a lot of oil. What I mean is more oil than wax, because I know that pencils don't have just one, oil or just wax. They have both ingredients, but one is more dominant than the other. What I will say is, and it's very important that you listen to the words that I'm saying here. Of all the pencils that I have reviewed and tested thus far, these pencils are the closest, I think, to Prismacolor Premier pencils. Now, I wouldn't say that they are exactly the same softness as Prismacolor, but they're not far off it. And there's a lot of other characteristics to these pencils that reminded me so much of Prismacolor. But I'll get to that when I show you the tests and what have you. So that's the pencils themselves. Now, like I said, I have put all of these pencils together to show you, to give you what they look like in their color number from 1 to 520. So if you look at the images here that I've got up on the screen, this is how the pencils lay out when they are put in their number. And you can see here, it is clearly different. And as you're looking at this image, you will probably think to yourself that a lot of these colors are very, very similar. And there are similar colors in here. You're not going to have 520 pencils and not have some similar colors. That would just be impossible. It does say on the boxes here that I'm nearly sure it was on the boxes. Blendable pencils are perfect for coloring solution, rich, vibrant pigments, and expertly balanced shades. Provide superior blending, whether you're a beginner, a hobbyist, or a professionalist. These premium pencils are ideal for your creative work, from quick sketches to intricate details. I'm nearly sure I seen somewhere, and I can't remember for the life of me where it was, that no color is the same throughout this. Now, I'm going to show you the swatch. So if you look here, this is the complete swatch of all 520 pencils. Now, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit on certain colors, and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about, because if you were to look at this, all these colors just laid out together, standing back, you would look at it and you would think, right, okay, there's a lot of colors there that are exactly the same, but they're very similar, but they're not exactly the same. Now, I've studied this swatch in depth, and I've done the artwork with them, and I've done lots of testing on them, and I've used different papers. For example, the swatch that I done was done on Fabriano Artistico, simply because that's the biggest pad I have. It's an A3 pad, so this swatch was done on 2 A3 bits of paper. So you can see here that it's just 2 bits of paper together, but they're A3 size, so, and on fairly high quality paper as well. But so you can see there that the pigments have, because I do like a light layer and then do a heavy application of it at the bottom, kind of like a gradient effect, so that you can see the colors with a heavy application and a light application when you're looking at the swatch. But like I say, so if we look here at the top of the swatch, along the top here we have a lot of all the yellows, some kind of like lemon yellows. Then we're coming into the oranges and ochres here, and there are some very, very similar colors there. But as you come down and you go, there's like these reddy browns, real gorgeous earth tones in them. The greens are just to die for. If you're a botanical artist, there are just some of the most beautiful greens I've seen out of both sets. You can see here this selection of greens. You know, you've got viridian greens, really, really light greens, olive greens, some very artificial looking greens, and some very, very gorgeous natural greens. The blues as well, you know, there's a lot of similar blues in here. I think they could have put in maybe, I mean, see, when I look at the dark blues now in sets, I'm always looking at the Caran d'Ache Luminance indigo blue that they have, because it's super dark and it's gorgeous. And I look at those and always think to myself, you know, maybe they could have got a darker blue in there, but the dark blue that they have in here is really nice. Then if we look at the bottom part of this swatch, so we've got a little bit of a carry on here from the blues. So we've kind of like coming out of the aqua blues, a few more lighter blues, cobalt blues, denim blues. Then we've got some more pinks and violets. Into the reds. The reds have got a really nice selection here as well. There are a lot of nice flesh tones in here as well. And then at the bottom of this one, there are a lot of metallic colors. Then there's a lot of neon colors as well. The grays are all laid out here, so you've got kind of like rose grays, blue grays, green grays, really, really nice selection of grays. And you can see here at the end, this kind of row of grey greens, which are just gorgeous, absolutely beautiful. And even though I'm not a big fan of, say, like metallic colours, the metallic pencils that are in both these sets are really nice. And actually, I've never had or used neon coloured pencils. In fact, actually, I'm lying there. I bought the Caran d'Ache neon colour pencils that they have. They have 3, I think, an orange, a green, and a yellow. They're quite big pencils. I bought them a long time ago. And I think maybe they might have 4. I think there's maybe a blue one in there as well. But anyway, the neon colours that are in this set are really visually striking. I don't know where you would put them in an art piece, but they're there. I know there's a lot of really awesome artists that can do some fantastic work with neon colour pencils. So these neon colour pencils here would fit in well with that type of artwork. So you can see there overall, there are a lot of colours that are similar. And like I said at the very beginning, you could get away with just buying one of these sets. And you wouldn't really miss out too much if you didn't have the other set. Whether you got set A or set B, it's not like you would really notice that you didn't have the other sets. Okay, so just before we get into the testing, I obviously did some artwork. The artwork that I completed with this set of pencils was done on this pad. So I wanted to, I've been using this paper as well for a review I'm going to do of this paper and this company's paper. So this particular drawing here was done on this watercolor, hot press watercolor 640 GSM paper, and that paper is a high quality paper. It's 100% cotton, but the artwork turned out really, really well. I was really impressed. The pencils laid down beautifully on it. Although there's not like a wax bloom or anything, there is kind of like that sheen that you get with the predominantly oil type pencils. It's almost like a gloss, like whenever you're mixing gloss paint and you see that kind of that gloopy glossy sheen to it. You can see it there on the black background that I've done, but I'll show you more about that later on. So as you can see here with the layering test, as always, I've got five layers done here, and then a final heavy application at the very end here. And as always, when I'm doing these layer tests, I'm holding the pencil like this, so quite far back whenever I'm doing these layers, because I want the pencil to do the layering, not me. And that's why I do the heavy application, so that you can see the difference between a pencil that provides light layers and then that same pencil providing a heavy application. Because I know that there are some colour pencil artists out there that are quite happy just lifting up the colour and applying a heavy application of that colour down, whereas there's other artists that much prefer to do like light layers and bring in other colours to try and deepen the richness or whatever it is that they're doing. But I know that there are different types of colour pencil artists, and so I try to make sure that these tests cover everybody's taste in the way they do things. But you can see here the pigment strength with these pencils is really quite strong. The blending test here that I've done, as you can see, I've got the blue and the yellow, and it has created this clear, gorgeous green. The blending here for these pencils was seamless, really, really simple, really, really easy. There was no sort of like issues whatsoever. This red and yellow to create this orange. Now, I think maybe in hindsight, I could have picked a darker red, but I think I went with a lighter, pinkier red. But nevertheless, I've still created a nice orange here. And then down at the bottom, the same red and blue here, and it's created a nice purple. Now, down at the very bottom here, as always, so this is the odorless mineral spirits test. So you can see here, I've completed this sphere just with a group of greens and a little bit of black. And I've got some odorless mineral spirits in this brush. Hopefully it hasn't evaporated completely. I've just got it in an ordinary water brush. It just makes it simpler for doing this test. But I'm just going to see how well the pigment reacts to the odorless mineral spirits. And the odorless mineral spirits that I'm using here is just Zest. I know it's not something that can be got outside of the UK. It's pretty much exclusive to the UK and certain parts of Europe, Zested, I think. But you can get other things like Gamsol and other solvents for doing this type of thing. I personally don't use odorless mineral spirits whenever I'm blending, but I know a lot of you guys do, and so that's why I do this test at the end. But you can see here that the pigment reacts reasonably well, not the best, but it does react reasonably well with the odorless mineral spirits. And don't forget, this test is just showing you how the pigment breaks down. It's not really showing you how rich or anything like that you get with the color of the pencils, because what you would ordinarily do is, once you've applied your layers and then you apply your odorless mineral spirits, 9 times out of 10, that rejuvenates the tooth of the paper and allows you then to continue applying layers. So I would ordinarily, if I was going over this blinking flies driving me nuts. Ordinarily, if I was doing this, if this was an art piece, I would let the odorless mineral spirits dry, and then I would go back over it with coloured pencils. And that's one of the huge benefits that you get using odorless mineral spirits whenever you are doing a coloured pencil piece, is that once you've applied all your layers and you're ready to use the odorless mineral spirits, by that point, a lot of the tooth of the paper has gone because of the layers. But once you apply the odorless mineral spirits, it kind of like brings back a little bit of that tooth of paper, which allows you then to put a few more layers down. So all in all, like I said earlier on, obviously the Prismacolor pencils are a predominantly wax-based pencil. But when I first started using these pencils, I was reminded of the Prismacolor, and so I actually got a couple of Prismacolor pencils out, and I was doing a lot of tests side by side, because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't, because I know a lot of colour pencil artists are always looking for a pencil that is just like Prismacolor but doesn't have the breakage issues that Prismacolor used to be kind of renowned for, which I personally think they are tightening up their game in that area. I don't hear as many artists say about Prismacolor pencils breaking anymore, but nevertheless, taking into consideration that these are a predominantly oil-based pencil, they are very, very similar to Prismacolor. And of all the pencils I've tested, I would say that these are the closest to the characteristics that I would get from a Prismacolor pencil. When the core is sharpened, it sharpens really, really well, and I can keep the point of the core for a considerable period of time. It doesn't go down too quick, especially if you're turning it around, that type of thing, and you're using it effectively. And that's, I find that is very similar of Prismacolor pencils if you're applying light layers. Obviously, if you're putting down a heavy application of a Prismacolor pencil or one of these pencils as well, the Brutfuner, they are going to lose their point quite quickly. But that's just common sense. So next up here is this test here on black paper. And as you can see, I've done this, and I ordinarily do this on the camera for you, but this time I just thought, I'm going to be talking too long. I just want to have it done for you. But as you can see here, this test doesn't really show a good or a bad point of the pencil. It just shows whether the pigment is translucent or whether it's opaque. And it always tends to be that if a pencil core is predominantly oil, there tends to be a lot of translucent pigments within that set. The wax-based, kind of like the pencils that are more predominantly wax, they tend to be a little bit more opaque. Not always. I mean, it's very important that you don't just get into your head that, oil-based pencils equals translucency and wax-based pencils equals opaqueness. It's not always the case, but generally, the pencils that I have reviewed, that's the way they are. But you can see here that with the red and the yellow, there is definitely an element of translucency with those pigments. You can see the black of the paper coming through. With this blue here, not so much. You can see that there is a little bit of black of paper coming through, but that's more to do with the heavy application I've put down, just missed bits. But it is more opaque than the other colours. The green here as well is a little bit translucent, and then the white is quite opaque, which is nice. Now, I used the white in the artwork that I did of the lilies. Incidentally, I'll have the artwork over on the Art Gear Guide, where you can take a look at the images the photographs that I took of the artwork at various stages. And also I'll have a speed drawing of the artwork up on the YouTube channel here as well. Another thing that I would like to mention just before I wrap this up is, obviously the pencils come in these little plastic trays, which are quite flimsy, but they're well packed in. In other words, most of the times when pencils come in these types of trays, they're falling out all over the place. But I can tip this upside down and they don't come out. It can be a little bit cumbersome getting them out because they're so tightly packed in there. You've got to kind of like get your fingernail in at the end of the pencil here and lift them out, which can, if they're, they come pre-sharpened, but once you sharpen them, it can sometimes break off the tip of the core. Not too much, but it can sometimes do it with some of the pencils. But once you've lifted one out, they're easier to lift out then at that point. But it's just getting that initial pencil out of the first tray. It can be a little, because you've got nowhere to kind of like get your fingers into and pick it out. So you've got to get it from the back and leverage it out. But you can see here that they have these grooves at the core of the pencil, and then they've got these grooves midway down the pencil, and they help kind of like keep the pencils in place, which is quite nice. Obviously, it becomes an issue once you start running out. You use your pencil and halfway down, it's not going to fit in here any longer. But nevertheless, I'm sure you've got other ways of storing your pencils. Storing 520 pencils is obviously going to be a nightmare, full stop. Whether you keep these two boxes and store them in that, but then getting in and out and gaining access to the pencils then becomes a little bit of a pain, because when I was doing my artwork and I was looking at the different colours that I needed for the artwork, I tried to select the colours that I needed and I got them out and lay them on the table. But as I was going along, I thought to myself, right, I know that there's other colours in there that might help me out better. So then I had to get back into the boxes, rummage through all the different colours and get to them that way. So it was a little bit time consuming and a little bit frustrating, but that's only because there's so many colours. So here's the next question I got asked was, is it necessary to have 520 pencils or colours? Absolutely not. It's crazy. It's ludicrous. You do not need 520 colored pencils. Absolutely, you do not. But do you want 520 colored pencils? They're two very, very different questions. I've watched artists here on YouTube, and artists I know who have got 12 colored pencils and produced the most beautiful works of art with just those 12 colored pencils. In fact, the artist who pops into my head when I think that is Shanna Rowe Jackson. She done a beautiful piece of like with 3 apples on a bed of grass, and she done it with 12 Holbein colored pencils, and it was beautiful. So, do you need 520 colored pencils? No, absolutely not. But would you like 520 colored pencils? Well, that's a different question, and that is only, unfortunately, a question you can answer. The pricing of the pencils is over on the Art Gear Guide, the written review. So go across there. I have got links to where people can purchase these pencils. Now, here's the thing. I already know that somebody has purchased these through AliExpress and apparently had a bit of an issue. The person who contacted me didn't tell me, I don't think has got to the bottom of it. Basically what happened was the pencils were shipped out, and midway through, before the pencils got to this artist, I think they were asked to, the price went up or something like that, and they were asked to pay more money, so they didn't, and they were sent back. What I can tell you is the links that I've provided. Okay, so I've provided links for artists in the US, the UK, Canada, Australia, and Europe. They're all although the prices are for those countries, but they're all coming from one supplier at AliExpress. The reason why I do it like that is because every Sunday I check those links and I make sure that they are the cheapest links that are available, whether it's on AliExpress or whether it's on Amazon. Now, I know that the pencils that I got from the supplier that I got them from, they have reduced the cost by £15. So they're £15 less than when mine came through. So I do know that they've gone down a little bit. But I always keep an eye on the links so that you guys don't have to, and so that you guys know that any links you select through the Art Gear Guide are going to be the cheapest available on those platforms at that time. Now, they're not the cheapest around all of the places, but the only platforms I use are Amazon and AliExpress currently, because they're global sites, as opposed to just, doing local art stores and stuff like that, franchises, small franchises and stuff. That becomes too complicated, and it would mean me having to generate links for multiple countries, and it would just take even longer than what it already takes to do a review. So I just keep it simple with Amazon and AliExpress. But the links that I've provided over there at the minute, in any case, I do keep a check on them. Every Sunday I check all the links, and thus far those links are still good. They're, like I say, £15 cheaper than what they came to me at. And another thing as well, when you get them, you get a tracking number from AliExpress all the time. All the items I've got from AliExpress, I have had a tracking number from them. And for some reason, the weight of these did have an issue at some point in the transition. I don't know what the issue was. It just came up on the tracking saying that there was an issue with the weight, but it didn't cost me any more money, and it didn't cost me any more time. They got to me within 10 days, I think it was, from when I was contacted about them. I think that's it, guys. I can't think of anything else that I was asked about these pencils. If there's any questions you want to ask me, please by all means do so. But like I said at the beginning, please check out the written review, because on the written review, you will be able to see the pencils that come with the sets, and then the way the pencils look with all 520 laid out in a oneer. And so but like I say, if you want to buy one of these sets, you could absolutely do so and not feel like you're really seriously losing out. Both sets have some neon colors in them. Both sets have some metallic colors in them. Obviously, when they're combined, you're going to get a lot more, but that's normal. But in terms of browns and blues and all the rest of it, you're fine. With 260 pencils, you're still going to get a really nice selection. With regards to whether the colors are the same, if they're too samey or anything like that, well, I've provided the swatch for you. I've provided the colors on really high quality paper. It's up to you. If you take a look at the swatches, like I say, over on the written review, you can click on the image and then you can zoom in on it and you can go really in close to the images yourself. But you can see yourself, and if you think that the colors are too similar, then, don't get them. But, and finally, before I go, they're not light fast, obviously, and they are not sold open stock. I would imagine to try and sell 520 pencils open stock would be a logistical nightmare. When you run out of your pencils, you're going to run out of your pencils. That tends to be the case with a lot of these cheaper pencils from China and Hong Kong and Japan. But what I will say is, I think for people who look at pencils in the likes of China and Japan and Hong Kong and think cheap rubbish, cheap tat, whatever, you're entitled to your opinion, and that is absolutely great. But my counter opinion to that would be, I think you're not. Make sure before you conclude that in your own head that you've actually tried those pencils. And if you've tried them and you still think that pencils from China and Japan and Hong Kong are just cheap rubbish, then fine, that's good. All the pencils I've tested from those countries have been cheap, yes, but they've not been rubbish. And the artwork that I've done with them has been okay, for my standard of art. And I can think of lots of different other areas of color pencil art that those types of pencils would absolutely slot into beautifully and work wonderfully for, like adult color pencil artists, that type of thing. Anyway, guys, I've rambled on far too much here. I need to go. England are playing Italy tonight in the final of Euro 2020. I know we're in 2021, but because of COVID. So I'm going to go because I want to watch the football, and I shall speak to you all again soon. Thank you so much for all the lovely comments that you've left about Amelia and stuff. I will keep you updated about that at a later date. But for now, that's my review of the 520 humongous coloured pencils. And thank you so much for watching. Just before I go, actually, somebody was talking to me about the Felissimo, which is the Japanese coloured pencils that come in 500, and asked me how they compare. Well, I've not had the Felissimo, and I'm not 100% sure how they test or how they work or anything like that. But what I do know about them is that they come in sets of 20, and they come in a subscription-based package, and they come every month. Now, I worked out that in order for you to collect the full 500, it would take about 3 years of getting 20 each month. With that being said, 500 pencils over a 3-year period, my concern would be is that the first set that I got, I would either have to keep them in the box and wait until 3 years later before I use them so that I have them all together and then use all 500 pencils, or I would use them, and by the time the last couple of sets came, the first couple of sets would no longer be available to me. So there is all of that you have to kind of like consider and about the Felissimo. But anyway, that's my review. Thank you so much, guys, for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all again very soon. Bye.